Welcome to Hormones Simplified. In today's session, we will talk about menopause and symptoms related to menopause. Menopause usually happens at the age of 51. That's usually the average age that's been quoted in the Western world. Early menopause is when menopause happens between the age of 40 to 45, and premature menopause is when menopause happens before the age of 40. There are various symptoms which are associated with onset of menopause. But just before we look at the symptoms, it's important to know what the timing of the symptoms may be. Before the last period happens and most of the menopausal symptoms become apparent, there is a period of about 2 to 5 years, which is known as perimenopause. These are usually 2 to 5 years before periods stop, where some of the symptoms related to menopause will start showing up. Initially, these symptoms may not be very apparent, but as time progresses, these symptoms become progressive and they go from mild to moderate to severe. However, once the last period has happened and the transition into menopause has happened, at that point, the severe symptoms will kick in and the severity will be the most. Let's look at what those symptoms are. So classically, when someone hears about menopause, the most obvious symptom is a hot flush. So the classical symptoms include hot flushes, night sweats, difficulty in sleeping, feeling tired, constant fatigue, mood fluctuations, low mood or depressive thoughts. Many women report elevated levels of anxiety. These are usually the most common ones, but there are of course other symptoms which may affect some women. And these symptoms will include a drop in libido, their sexual life is affected. This may also be because of dryness of vagina. There may be symptoms related to bladder, such as urgency or not being able to completely empty bladder, or not being able to hold urine for a long period of time. Incontinence of urine may happen, so leaking on sneezing or pressure may start around this time. Besides the mood fluctuations, the other related symptoms which are often reported are constant irritability or mood fluctuating between up and down. So there can be times where one may feel very positive, happy, but there'll be other times where one may suddenly start feeling very low, tearful. These sort of fluctuations become more and more common as time progresses. There are many unusual symptoms which may be related to menopause. Sometimes it's difficult to even know that these are because of menopause, and it's only when we often talk to women in our clinics we realize that actually these symptoms are related to menopause, and sometimes giving hormones back in the body may take care of these symptoms. The unusual ones which you often come across are constant headaches, feeling of itching under the skin or just around various parts of the body. Sometimes there is a feeling of breathlessness, a feeling of constant worry, of sort of doomsday scenario. There are other sort of unusual symptoms, for example, feeling of sort of crawling sensation in the skin. And these are usually not the common ones. If we move on to the classical symptoms a little bit more in details, how does one describe a hot flush? A hot flush is something like a warm sensation behind the ears, usually starts around the facial area. Sometimes it may start around the legs or arms and then actually travel in the rest of the body. And it's usually a sensation of warmth or heat that is described by most women as coming on suddenly. It may last for seconds, it can last for minutes, and usually subsides with profuse sweating. There's usually a flushing or redness around the facial area and the rest of the body that's associated with the hot flush. Night sweats, another classical symptom of menopause. Night sweats are typically described as sudden waking at night with extreme sweating. The whole bed, the clothing is drenched with sweating. And these episodes again may happen sometimes occasionally, or may happen every few minutes, or sometimes every few hours. So the frequency of hot flushes or night sweats will vary. They may start as occasional, but they may then progressively become every minute, every hour, and it depends from woman to woman how often these symptoms happen. We looked at the hot flushes, the night sweat. Sleep difficulties are a common one. This may be an indirect effect of not being able to sleep because of hot flushes or night sweats, but there are some data and there are some studies which do indicate that sleep itself by its own may be disturbed, even in absence of vasomotor symptoms. And this may be an effect of lack of estrogen at menopause. We talked about the other ones. We talked about the lack of libido, sexual dysfunction. We also talked about lack of desire, vaginal dryness. Of course, mood changes are a very pronounced symptom. The time around menopause is one of the times where it's unknown that most women will be vulnerable to mood changes. That may not simply be because of hormones, but there may be so many other things going on in life at the same time. All these effects, the social, the cultural effects, as well as one stage of life, will have some bearing in addition to the hormones. But for many women, hormones do contribute to the low mood or the mood fluctuations that happen around perimenopause and menopause. It's important to recognize this because often if a woman has depressive thoughts, low mood at the time she's going through menopausal transition, a woman is commonly offered antidepressants as a treatment. Now, this may not always be the right treatment. It's not to say that antidepressants are not a treatment in some women, and there are indications for antidepressant treatment, and it's important to recognize where they are necessary. But for many women, it's the hormones. And so it is trying to get estrogen back into the system often will show as a marked improvement in mood. So mood has a direct relation to the levels of estrogen, and often HRT can reverse the low mood or the changes in mood that one has. We talked about also some of the local changes, the vaginal dryness, the bladder effects. These are because the vagina and the bladder are both quite rich in estrogen hormone receptors. And whenever estrogen levels drop, the dryness, the lack of secretion, discharge, as well as the problems with bladder such as holding urine or incontinence will show up. Besides all these symptoms, of course, there are a few others which I will mention right towards the end. Things like bony pains or aches. Many women complain of joint aches, bony pains all over the body. Some women also complain of changes in their skin, nails, hair, and that's because usually there is dryness of skin, nails become very brittle, there is hair loss. Occasionally there is some excess hair around the chin area. That's all because of imbalance between the lack of estrogen and a relative excess of male hormone, the testosterone. That's usually typical around the time of perimenopause, menopausal transition. So these are usually all the effects that one experiences around the time of perimenopause and menopause. Every woman is different. Not all women will have all symptoms. Some women may have certain symptoms which are pronounced, while other women will have a different set of symptoms. What is important is to recognize that these symptoms exist, and also it's important to know that there is something that you can do for all these symptoms. It's not just about HRT, it's not about hormone replacement alone. HRT has its role, it's one of the best ways to replace estrogen and get rid of menopausal symptoms. And we'll talk more about the HRT in subsequent videos. But what's important is every symptom can be taken care of by simple measures, simple things which can be done in day-to-day activity, day-to-day life, which can try and minimize these symptoms. There can be natural solutions, there can be treatments which are non-medical, and of course at the end you have HRT, which usually is one of the best solutions for menopausal symptoms. If you are experiencing any of the symptoms I have mentioned, and if they have been persisting for more than 2 to 3 months, it is important to maybe seek help from your GP or your healthcare professional, that's because it may be that the symptoms are pointing you that something is not right. Your GP or your doctor may offer you blood tests or may take more detailed medical history so that they can possibly find out why these symptoms may be occurring for you. And at that point, it may be important that some sort of diagnosis may be made in terms of whether you're close to menopause or approaching menopause, or are the symptoms actually not related to onset of menopause. If you have any questions about menopausal symptoms or any other issues related to menopause, please do let us know. Do get in touch with us so that we can do more videos and we can give you more information about any aspects of menopause or menopausal symptoms. I hope you found this video useful, and we will definitely bring more content like this in terms of issues related to menopause or hormones in general. Best of luck. See you later.